couple of weeks ago, we've covered it extensively on this show. Alex Pretti was murdered by two Customs and Border Protection. I keep saying Customs and Border Patrol. I don't know why. It's Customs and Border Protection, CBP. Up until this point, we had no idea who the killers were, which is in stark contrast to Renee Good, whose killer was identified within, a couple days. As soon as that information became available, it was published. We were coming up on like 3 weeks almost, and neither of these men were identified. ProPublica reported that the two federal immigration officials who shot and killed Alex Pretti, they identified them as Jesus Ochoa and Raymundo Gutierrez. What's interesting about this? What's quite ironic about this? You have two Hispanic men who killed a white guy because he was protesting their raids and kidnappings on fellow undocumented Hispanic people. There's irony is dead, actually. You cannot write. I don't think Larry David could write something this ironic. The Gestapo is DEI at this point. This is what we're seeing in 2026. Woke is so back that Nazis come in every race, sexuality, ethnicity. You have black Nazis. Well, black Nazis have always existed, like Myron Gaines, like Kanye before he apologized for all of his anti-Semitism. You have gay Mexican Nazis like Nick Fuentes. You have other Latino Nazis like these two, Jesus Ochoa and Raymundo Gutierrez. The records viewed by ProPublica list Ochoa, 43, and Gutierrez, 35, as the shooters during the deadly encounter last weekend that left Alex Pretti dead and ignited massive protests and calls for criminal investigations. Both men were assigned to Operation Metro Surge, an immigration enforcement dragnet launched in December that sent scores of armed and masked agents across the city. This is what internalized white supremacy looks like. I don't know the full background on these individuals. I don't know how long they've lived here. I don't know if they were born here or if they immigrated here. But when you come to the United States, or when you're born into the United States, you are, from the very fucking moment that you gain consciousness, fed you are fed white supremacist propaganda, sometimes explicitly, sometimes implicitly. And that is where this and that just continues to build if you're not if it's not explained away. This is why, like, black white supremacists exist. This is why Hispanic white supremacists exist, because they've grown up in an environment where they harbor resentment for their own people, pretty much because they've been indoctrinated into doing so. Segregation and Jim Crow may be formally outlawed, but systemic racism still exists, whether that's in sentencing disparities, whether that's in the prison system, whether that's in just routine stops by the police, of which black and Latino people are, like, what, 3 or 4 times more likely than white people to be randomly stopped by a police officer. So you grow up, you live in a white supremacist society, and you begin to internalize that. Internalized misogyny functions the same way. CBP, which employs both men, has so far refused to release their names and has disclosed few other facts about the deadly incident. which came days after a different immigration agent shot and killed another Minneapolis protester, 37-year-old mother of three named Renee Good. Pretti's killing and the subsequent secrecy surrounding the agents involved comes as the country confronts the consequences of President Trump's aggressive immigration crackdown. The sweeps in cities across the country have been marked by scenes of violence against immigrants and U.S. citizens, by agents allowed to hide their identities with masks, an almost unheard of practice in law enforcement. As a result, the public has been kept from one of the chief ways to hold officers involved in such altercations accountable: their identity. I think DHS came out and said that they will now be um they'll be doing away with masks. I cannot confirm or deny that, but ultimately, like, I don't think it fucking matters because we've had unmasked CBP and DHS officials just blatantly tell people that, like, oh, you're on a list now, welcome to my database. It doesn't fucking matter if they're wearing masks or not, because they've been emboldened to act like this by the administration. What you need to do is prosecute and imprison Jesus Ochoa and Raymundo Gutierrez and Jonathan Ross for their murder. You need to imprison them for their murder. You need to set a precedent that if you commit a crime, you are going to be punished the same way that a civilian is going to be punished. Both Democratic and Republican lawmakers have called for a transparent investigation into the killing of Pretti, a 37-year-old ICU nurse working at a Department of Veterans Affairs hospitals. Ochoa is a Border Patrol agent who joined in 2018. Gutierrez joined in 2014 and works for CBP's Office of Field Operations. He's assigned to a special response team which conducts high-risk operations like those of police SWAT units. Records show both men are from South Texas. So this is a highly trained individual, or seemingly highly trained individual, who killed somebody because they don't know how to fucking do their job. That was something that I pointed out, that other commentators had pointed out beforehand. This was a DHS veteran who killed somebody because they're violent and they're bloodthirsty. This is not somebody trained in de-escalation. In the aftermath of the shooting, Greg Bovino, who has orchestrated high-intensity immigration sweeps and arrests in a string of Democratic-led cities since 2025, was removed from his role as Border Patrol Commander at Large and reassigned to his former post in El Centro, California. Ochoa, who goes by Jesse, graduated from the University of Texas Pan American with a degree in criminal justice, according to his ex-wife, Angelica. A longtime resident of the Rio Grande Valley, Ochoa had for years dreamed of working for the Border Patrol and finally landed a job there, she said. By the time the couple split in 2021, he had become a gun enthusiast with about 25 rifles, pistols, and shotguns. That is way too many weapons to have. And I'm saying this as someone who has friends with multiple firearms legal gun ownership, putting that out there. And I have fired multiple of their weapons. But at a certain point, if my friend accumulated 25 different kinds of firearms, I would probably pull them aside and be like, what are you doing? Why are you amassing a stockpile? You don't need all this. DHS's disclosure to Congress was drawn from an internal review of the agent's body cam footage, which has not been released to the public. State investigators, meanwhile, have accused their federal counterparts of blocking them from investigating the shooting. Okay, the rest of this is stuff we already knew, just detailing the events that led up to and succeeded the murder of Alex Pretti. I hope, literally the only thing that I hope comes of this is that these motherfuckers are sent to prison, that they are held accountable for their crimes.